Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this international conference. We're going to open this international conference now formally. I'm going to introduce the colleagues that are here on the table with me that I'm sure you know. I have Professor David Moran, from the University of Cádiz, coordinator of the conference. David, it's a pleasure to have you here, a professor in commercial law. And here on my left, I had Professor Carmen Sampere, commercial law professor and co-director of this conference. Good morning, dear Carmen. And myself, Luis Alfonso Martinez, Vice Chancellor of Academic Planning and Faculty, and I'm here representing institutionally, representing this institution and accompanying you. Without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Professor David Moran to address. Sorry, I apologize. First, I'm going to give the floor to Professor Carmen Pastor Sempere, co-director of this conference. Welcome to this conference, dear guests, vice chancellors of the two universities that host this conference, the University of Alicante and CEU San Pablo from Madrid, President of the Government of Alicante, members and representatives of UNIDROIT, Registry and Notary Professional Associations members from Garrigas Abogados, GSM Consultancy, Mocrypto, colleagues from the organizing committee, friends and colleagues. I welcome you to this city of Alicante. In the framework of this fourth international conference, in this moment of mourning, we would like to dedicate a minute of silence in the memory of the victims and missing persons of the recent floods in Valencia. We stand up, please. I take the opportunity as well to say that our colleagues from Valencia, Professor Pompeu Casanovas, except Pompeu Casanovas, the rest of the professors will not be able to come here today, be here with us, because there's an alert and their trains are not running. So it's a way of explaining also this minute of silence. I'm going to keep it short because the program is very tight, but I'd like to highlight that this international conference is carried out within the Prometheus program from the government of the region of Valencia to back and promote groups of excellence in R&D in the region of Valencia. And this is proof of the interest and concern for this matter of digital assets. Prometheus, the name of this program, is inspired in the tradition conveyed by some mythographers about Prometheus, that was a titan that stole the fire from gods and gave it to humanity. But what happened really is that he discovered tools with which we light the fire. He taught the technique enabling human beings to keep the flame of knowledge and conveyed throughout the centuries, making them free. Throughout the history of mankind, we've used different commercial techniques to convey the value in space and time, without forgetting legal certainty. Double entity accounting, bills of exchange, checks, securities. Commercial symphony that has been written following a the traditional two-bit compensate and liquidate assets. Today, humankind is facing new technological developments that allow for an interconnection of the physical and virtual world. As technology moves forward and humans spend more time connected, our relationships with digital assets will be more and more important. Therefore, it's inevitable, taking into account the large diversity of definition of digital assets, to establish principles about the legal treatment of digital assets to facilitate their incorporation to national legislation and national regulations as appropriate. The International Institute for the Unification of Private Law, UNIDROIT, set up the working group on digital assets, and that finally in October 2023 published 19 principles that aim to achieve a high predictability in transactions and to provide a common basis and global legal certainty in the treatment of digital assets, unifying and harmonizing essential parts of private law. UNIDROIT recommends that each jurisdiction adopts rules that adapt to these principles. It's a recommendation. In response, each jurisdiction will be able to draft laws and regulations reflecting these principles. It is highlighted that it is a response to a larger challenge, even larger than digital assets, that is the existence of a globalized world where a change of paradigm is necessary. And one of the keys is in this legal challenge that present digital assets. It's their global dimension, and why are they a challenge in themselves? Because they don't follow classical legal schemes and they take place in a global context. It's very difficult to link them to a particular country, and this leads to real legal uncertainty. UNIDROIT has served as a venue where different experts of all branches and legal systems have converged, the most representative ones, to determine the most appropriate solutions in what is an extraordinary, and I underline this, extraordinary service to the international legal community. The International Institute for the Unification of Private Law is an independent intergovernmental organization governed by the UNIDROIT bylaws, where the different member economies have been adhered. And at the end of May 2024, 65 economies were members of UNIDROIT. And this is important to have data from 2024, from the 22nd to the 24th of October 2024, in the Tata city of Kazan. The 16th BRICS summit was held with representatives and chiefs of state of 30 countries: Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. The result was the Declaration of Kazan on the strengthening of multilateralism, and among other proposals, there were two that were very relevant in the context of this conference. The first one, BRICS will experience with distributed ledger technology, DLT, like blockchain, promoting the use of central bank digital currencies, CBDC, so that nations can settle trade imbalances directly without the need of a SWIFT system and correspondent banks located in third countries. The second proposal, there are also plans to establish a BRICS grain exchange and an associated pricing agency with hubs for trading commodities as grains, oil, natural gas, gold, that can also be used to solve trade imbalances, and I underline this. Xi Jinping declared, "We choose our paths, our ways to development in an independent way. We defend jointly our right to development, and we walk in unison towards modernization." To this, we have to add the recent elections in the US. We need also to examine this from a geopolitical point of view, and also cryptocurrency, digital cryptocurrency point of view, because we need to give them new momentum. If Donald Trump's proposals materialize, would have to include new industry-friendly regulations, the rejection to the CBDCs that we just mentioned, defense of self-custody, and the development of Bitcoin mining. And we may be receiving new beats, new compasses here with this commercial symphony that we may be at the threshold of a new digital architecture of international trade. We find ourselves in a different global digital market, and we need a legal analysis of digital assets and the impact of financial and payment systems. And these are keys that the citizens and companies need to know to be able to operate with warranty in a digital market. To have more certainty in this time of change and uncertainty can only be possible through research, by means of the search for truth, by applying the scientific method. And this will only be achieved not only to become wiser, but to become more independent. With this aim, the conference tries to convey up-to-date information organized in a program for the benefit of attendees. The idea is to collaborate with sponsors who are increasing in number, who have also found an academic space of interaction to allow us the best sources and contact with specialists of most renowned specialists that dedicate a message, a summary of their experience and research in a very short period of time. We'll have 10 minutes each for their intervention. We sincerely thank you all for having the participation of the chair of the working group of UNIDROIT, Professor Hideki Kanda, together with Professor Neil Cohen, who was also involved in the first steps of the ALI, American Law Institute. Neil Cohen will connect via Zoom. In addition, we have here with us face-to-face, Professors Edwin Smith and Stephen Wise, in charge of incorporating these developments in law through the reform of the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC, together with the Secretary General of UNIDROIT, Professor Ignacio Tirado, who are going to give us some context about their relevant organizations. We hope to create a cross-sectional community around digital assets. This is what allows university to make sense. The organizing committee of this conference is happy to have received more than 100 registrations, many people online, over 30 papers from part of the scientific community, linked with areas like law, economy, and technology. These papers seek to respond to the questions generated by the principles of UNIDROIT in a context of changes and uncertainty. We wish that this fourth conference will meet the expectations of participants and organizers and to be wiser and more independent. Welcome.
Muchas gracias, Carmen.
Thank you, Carmen, for your presentation. And now I'm going to give the floor to Professor David Moran. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'll try to keep it short, and to this end, I'm going to set a timer, because otherwise we can take forever. We need people to be close, to be attentive. Can you hear me properly? Okay. In a few minutes, I'd like to focus on responding to why we are here and why is this a reality. On the 13th of February, 2023, at the University Pablo de Olavide, we had a session. Some of the people present today were there. We had a session to cater for the call of UNIDROIT to disseminate the project at the beginning, the very beginning, with commentaries and the compilation of ideas from experts. At that meeting, the Professor Carmen Pastor was connected online to that session, and later on, Professor Carmen, with her research group, was given the Prometheus program. When Professor Pastor Sampere received the Prometheus program, one was thinking, and she liked the idea of the UNIDROIT principles. Professor Agustín Madrid Parra said, why doesn't Professor David Moran a paper about what we commented about these principles? So I prepared the paper the day of the patron saint of Cádiz, the Virgin of Rosario. And Professor Pastor Sempere liked the paper, and we started working together. The idea was that Professor Agustín Madrid Parra was, let's write a book like the one that was written 20-something years ago, 30 years ago to be more precise, that in the Commercial Law Department of the University of Cádiz, we drafted some suggestions as to the UNIDROIT principles for international trade contracts. And we made some suggestions, and those suggestions that we had drafted, some were welcomed, others weren't. We have to say that some of them triggered a second version in Spanish, because we had said that there was a problem with the Spanish version. We had an important problem with the Spanish version. So after that meeting and what the Spanish version looked like, Professor Meled here today, we were chatting with the rest of participants, sent more than 1,000 suggestions at the very about the principles. Those principles were not 19. There were 6 more in the first edition. There were more, they were longer. There are different instruments that converge in those principles. Professor Pendón Meléndez said, if they haven't paid attention to our suggestions, let's publish them. So we published a book that there was a second edition, but there was no third edition, because the principles had been extended and the list of authors had to be expanded. So we told Aranzadi that we weren't going to follow that line. But that model is the one that inspired this one. So each principle had to have an author that would reflect upon it, and would reflect upon it, as you know, with the preparatory documents of that the working group had. So we could use other material, but basically basing ourselves on those documents. And there were 2 tasks in mind. One that is nearly finished, although it hasn't been published as such, which was the version in Spanish of the UNIDROIT principles. That we've been requested from UNIDROIT to wrap up the French version. It's preferable to align the French and the Spanish version, and then together with those translations that each one carried out the translation work. I have to highlight the work carried out by Rocío. I'm really bad to remember names. I'm sorry, but Rocío, I can't remember her last name now, but anyway, these things happen. We requested the Applied Linguistics Institute from the University of Cádiz. We asked them for help, and they allocated a trainee that was preparing, that was studying at the university, and she was researching. So she helped us to adapt the Spanish version of the principles. And together with this Spanish version of the principles, there was the different reflections for their publishment, both in Spanish and in English. There we have the person representing, well, I don't know, say representing Springer, because Professor Casanova, yeah, I can say that he represents Springer, because he's in charge of the Spanish version of that set of that collection. And here we are. And this is what we're here for. We got here so that we can all say, yeah, I think this, I think that. This principle, as Professor Pendon was saying, he did the introduction and principle 14. So he said, well, I'm going to do the introduction. That is the beginning, but it's not a principle. That, well, we have a lot to learn from this. I would like to say that regarding the authors that are here present, we need to pay attention to what our colleagues say, because it's always going to be enriching, and to pay special attention as well to what our guests, external guests, say. Professor Kanda, as chair of the working group, and those in charge of the updated version, if I may say, and that have collaborated with the working group, Professor Weiss and Professor Smith, lawyers in the US, and with what Ignacio Tirado says, and also Neil Cohen, that he'll take the floor tomorrow online. One single word. Let's enrich, especially for our interpreters, to say it in one word. Let's enrich ourselves. Let's try to learn. Let's try to open our mind and try to perceive everything that the rest of the people have studied. I have to stop now because I've been going on for 8 minutes 21. So thank you, Vice Chancellor, and let's start.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I'm going to say a few words to close this opening act. Dear Professor Carmen Pastor, co-director, coordinator, Professor David Moran, chair of working group, Professor Kanda, dear speakers, colleagues from other universities attending this conference, representatives of institutions and entities, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great satisfaction for me to chair on behalf of the Chancellor, Acting Chancellor, that couldn't make it here, to open this conference on UNIDROIT principles and private law. The first thing I want to say is welcome all of you here. Speakers, participants, attendees, welcome all of you to the University of Alicante. It's true that this is a venue that we have here of the University of Alicante in the city center. We have a campus that I don't know if you had the opportunity to visit, but I welcome you in any case to this conference. For the University of Alicante, it's a great satisfaction to host this international conference that is co-hosted with the University CEU San Pablo, and that is the result of research work through the research group BAES of the University of Alicante, applied for companies, and that has started in the commercial law department of this university. It's a great satisfaction to have this research group, and I'd like to congratulate the director, Professor Carmen Pastor, for the work she carries out leading this multidisciplinary working group that combines collaborators from other universities and consolidates in very important projects. The last one recognized legal crypto Prometheus legal program, aiming to analyze legal implications of blockchain technology and its impact on the financial system and payment system. I'd like to congratulate the whole research group for the recently publication Governance and Control of Data in Digital Economy in the European Single Market that will be presented throughout this conference. I'd like to congratulate all participants in that publication. They have taken part in that publication. I'd like to congratulate the Commercial Law Department of the University of Alicante. We are really satisfied and honored to have the group of professors that we have on commercial law, led by Professor Esperanza Gallego, that shows her commitment to excellence, research, and training. And I'd like to also say the great value of speakers, magnificent speakers, professors of different universities from Spain and at international level that participate in this conference, that as far as I've seen, are very intense and have great quality. And finally, if I may, although my specialty is tax law, is also relevant, and I'd like to highlight the relevance and how timely this conference is in a context where the digital revolution has implemented a global change in economy and in society, and finally in law. We have different intangible goods or assets where we have digital assets that are, and we're going to show this, that are a challenge for legislators. And in this context precisely, we see this generalization process of these digital assets, a process that from a legal point of view is got to be analyzed very cautiously. It's true that the European Union has processed regulatory packages from 2020 for financial legislation, but it hasn't resolved many of the aspects regarding legal businesses, regarding different proprietary rights. The UNIDROIT principles published in October 2023 provide guidelines for legislators, for legal operators regarding the digital assets scheme regarding private law that constitute, as it has been said, not only a new harmonizing instrument, but also a fundamental element to have legal certainty. All these issues and many more are going to be discussed and analyzed today in this conference, starting today. And we're sure that these challenges and these uncertainties that the legal scenario brings us and that you're all going to think about are going to be seen also as opportunities for legal operators to enable to provide legal certainty. I'm sure, and I hope that these sessions are going to be very fruitful. Thank you very much for your participation, your presence, and welcome to the University of Alicante. And with this wish that we have fruitful sessions at the University of Alicante, I officially open on behalf of the Acting Chancellor of the University of Alicante this conference, UNIDROIT Principles on Digital Assets and Private Law. Thank you very much.